Over the last 6 months, we've recorded 777 transactions tracked through our payment processor. 180 of those came through Facebook ads, 45 of those came through Google, and 552 of them came through automated emails and organic content. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you how I wrote a few of those emails that took me less than 20 minutes each and have since been auto-selling me new clients every single day without me having to do a thing. So if you've been running your agency for a few months now and you haven't been growing exponentially, this video is for you. If you consistently take sales calls and you constantly get hit with BS objections, so now you're at the point where you don't even really want to take the sales calls anymore because you know you're not going to close them, then this video is for you. Because one of the statistics that you may or may not have heard of before is that only 5% of people close the first time you meet with them. 45% of them close in the first 6 months, and 50% of the prospects that close and do business with you or will do business with you close beyond 6 months of their first interaction with your business. Now, the problem that most of us have in the earlier stages of us trying to build a company is that we only rely on this 5% to keep the lights on. We have a simple funnel, whether we cold call, cold email, or run ads. We get prospects to show up to a call. They either buy or they don't buy. Maybe if they don't buy, we do a couple follow-ups, maybe a follow-up call. But if they still don't buy, then we let that prospect go off into the abyss and we never speak with them again, only to know that in a few months from now, that prospect is going to find one of your competitors and do business with them. So in this video, what we're going to share is how to create an automated system and how to write this type of content so every single person that ever interacts with our company constantly stays in our network, constantly stays top of mind. And as a result, even if they don't buy from you today, when they do decide to buy in 3 to 6 or even 12 months from now, instead of going to your competitors, they go to you, which is going to result in an exponential growth because you might only close 5% this month, but then in month 2 and month 3 and month 4, you're going to have prospects coming to you. And when prospects have come to you and you've set the frame and you position yourself as an authority and you've told your story, you don't get hit with those same BS objections that you're getting hit right now. And believe it or not, you don't hate sales. So let's get into how to write email newsletters. So first thing here is the anatomy of an email newsletter. So when writing emails to our prospects, we want to use the following structure. Number 1 is we want to start with an origin story, then introduce the painful problem, 3, unmet desire, 4, deliver the value, 5, establish some trust, 6, make your CTA, and then 7 with the PS line. So I'm going to go through the anatomy of an email newsletter. I'm going to detail exactly the steps you need to take and exactly how to think when you're going through each individual step of this email part. And then at last, I'm going to share 2 secrets that I've used that I have seen nobody in this industry ever do before, which results in probably 50 to 60% of all the email success that I've had since launching my email newsletters. So starting with the origin story. So I start all of my emails with an origin story. This story can be literally about anything. The idea is that we pick a real life event that ends up becoming a metaphor to the value that we provide. Now, most of the time when I talk about this, I hear, oh, well, Dylan, my life is boring. Well, you know what? So is mine too. I spend 12 hours a day sitting up here, locked up in this apartment, staring at this computer screen. But one of the things that I have learned how to do is look for stories out of anything. It could be a simple, trip to the beach where you saw some weird guy hanging out, which could turn into a story that you could use in your email newsletter. Some examples that I have that have performed very well for me is one time I told the story about a time I was at a country festival and there were a lot of drunk cowboys desperately trying to hook up with chicks and getting rejection, which led into the value of explaining how we act like drunk cowboys while trying to get clients. Or when I told the story about why it took so long to write one of my emails because a homeless guy was watching me, which led into the value of explaining how most of us slow down because we think people are watching us. Or telling the story about how I was kicked out of a Discord room, shared my story on YouTube, and then came back the next day and I was treated like royalty, which led into the value of why you need to tell your story to get people to care about what you have to say. Now, after studying hundreds of viral pieces of content and Pixar's movie production process, I developed a simple, foolproof guide to telling any story. So the anatomy of a story looks like this. You start with a hook. It's max 3 seconds long. You spark curiosity and or controversy. Then you set the scene. So you establish whereabouts this took place. You introduce the conflict. What was the problem that was happening, or what was the goal that you had, or the problem or conflict of the person you're telling the story about had? Then you increase the stakes, you describe the problem, you add to the journey, you increase the suspense, you add details. Then there's the conflict climax. It's the moment that everything led to. And as a result, what happened, and then more importantly, the transformation, what changed as a result. So here's an example of me telling a story about how I got my first paying client back in 2018. I followed this exact formula. And when I uploaded this on Instagram Shorts and YouTube Shorts, I got like 10, 20, 30,000 views across those two different platforms. So hook, this is how I got my first of over 200 clients. You can see there, I set the scene, I sparked curiosity and or controversy. Then I set the scene. I was trying to start my business and I just kept taking on free work, right? That was the situation that I was in. The conflict, my plan was to work for free and then sell them on paid work afterwards, but no one was buying. That was the problem. That was the problem that was the goal and the problem that I had. I was like over 10 free projects in. I started to believe that this wasn't going to work. I increased the stakes. All I had made was a $40 tip, and I was close to shutting things down and trying another business model. Again, increasing the stakes, adding suspense. And then I was driving home one day and I got a call from an unknown caller. And this lady was like, "Hey, I saw you did a video for a friend of mine. How much do you charge?" The result, I was like, I kind of panicked and I said, $200? Perfect. Are you free Wednesday? She said. And that was my first of over 200 clients I served with social media. So that's why you have to stay with it, because you never know when your breakthrough is going to happen. Now, once you've shared your story, it's time to transition into the painful problem. So the painful problem. So now that you're transitioning from the story to the painful problem by using language as, so this is why you're experiencing ... Then we want to get into the painful problems that your audience is suffering from. But here's the mistake that most new copywriters make. When talking about the problem, they mention the actual problem instead of the symptoms. But a lot of the time, people don't actually know what the problem is. They just know of the symptoms that they're experiencing. For example, if you have to go to the doctor, you don't say, "Oh, I have X virus." You say, "Listen, doc, I have a headache, a sore throat, and a pain in my side." So when we're sharing that painful problem, we want to bring up their version of the headache, the sore throat, and the pain in their side. So some examples could be, instead of saying, "Oh, well, I know you're struggling because you suck at sales," we say, "And after every sales calls you take, you get hit with the 'I need to think about it' objection." Because they might suck at sales. That might be the virus that they're suffering from. But the symptoms that they're having, the painful problem that they're experiencing, is that after every sales call they take, they get hit with the "I need to think about it" objection. Instead of saying, "You have a weak offer," we say, "And you constantly deal with prospects that don't want to pay up front because they've been burned in the past." Right? See the difference. We're talking about the actual experiences that they're having, the painful experiences that they're having, not necessarily the root of their problems. Then we want to get into the unmet desire. So after diving into the painful problem, we transition into the unmet desire that they have. Similar to the painful problem, the unmet desire isn't what they want at face value, but what they want gives them. Because listen, if you're in the home remodeling niche, your prospect doesn't want 10 new remodeling jobs. They want to feel secure in fact that they are going to make money for months to come. Their wife will look at him proud, and his daughter will be able to sign up for after-school activities without him worrying about money, and he'll even have the free time to attend them and strengthen his relationship with his daughter. And this is the big mistake that a lot of copywriters make, is they just focus on what they do, or this is what we do. You get 10 remodeling jobs, but that's not why. That's not the unmet desire that they have. The unmet desire revolves around the status that they'll gain from people that they know. It revolves around how their life will change, how they will become more comfortable, how they will improve their living conditions, how they will change their life personally, is the unmet desires that they have. So when we're going into the unmet desires, that's the point that we want to hit on. The next stage is the value. So for the value section, we simply want to explain what to do in order to bridge the gap between the painful problems and the unmet desire. Now, depending on what you're focusing on, it could be how to structure an offer, how to overcome objections, how to manage your team, etc. It could be any lesson as to which we want to teach as we're getting into the value section of our emails. In addition to this, I recommend that you only focus on one thing so you have content week in and week out. This is your opportunity to flex your knowledge and create the gap in your prospect's mind that you know things that they don't. This section is what makes them book calls with you, and trust me, these calls will be the easiest ones to close. Imagine if when you showed up to a sales call, the prospect wasn't like, "Oh, well, how can you help me?" They were instead like, "Hey, can you help me?" Right? Like, I already know what you can do. I already know what you talk about. I already know who you are. Are you able to help my business? Right? Imagine how much easier it'd be to close. Well, when you do this properly, that's kind of the effects that you will have. The next thing is trust. So after you've shared value, if possible, you should back it up with a case study. It could be from your own business or ideally a client's. And it can be as simple as saying, for example, XYZ Landscaping implemented this and they saw X result. Number 7 is the call to action. So the call to action is simply where people can take the first step in achieving this dream outcome, in achieving those unmet desires that you talked about earlier. We want to keep it simple and to the point while tying it into the content inside of your email. For example, it could be, if you want to see if your market is available to use the deals on demand system, click here. For example, that would be, for an example, if I was writing a cold email or writing an email, about the deals on demand system and how it impacted XYZ. And you could be like, hey, if you want to see if your market is available for the use of this deals on demand system, click here. If you talked about an offer, it could be, hey, if you want me to make your offer for you, click here. The next part is the PS line. So believe it or not, the PS line is the second most read part of your email, and therefore we should put significant effort into ensuring it's done properly. When people read emails, they'll commonly read the headline, then they'll skim through all the way down to the PS line, and then they'll decide if the email is worth reading. So when writing our PS line, we want to sell reading the email. For example, it could be, PS, my client XYZ followed this system and as a result achieved X. PS, in all my years of growing businesses, I've never seen a simpler way to 5X profits. You can see by these two PS lines, if you only read the subject line and maybe the first line, and then you scroll down to the PS line, and then you heard, in all my years of growing businesses, I've never seen a simpler way to 5X profits, you would be sold to go in and actually digest all of the content in the email. Now, last thing here is the secret to email success that I've had that nobody knows about, because over the last year, I've become known for my email copywriting. I've had people that I've never met before approach me in person and tell me that they love my emails. But what if I told you that only 50% of that was due to my copywriting? The truth is that although copywriting is an aspect to my email newsletter success, it's not the only reason. The other reason is because I have manufactured a sending sequence that trains my list to engage with my emails. I use a few tricks that allow me to maintain unheard of open rates and click-through rates. And here they are. Number 1 is my day-to-day sequence, and number 2 is how I sell opening the next email. So first up, my day-to-day sequence. So here's my day-to-day sequence, and as I explain it to you, you'll see why it's so effective. Day 1, straight value, no CTA. The first email I send is always the delivery of some form of free lead magnet while I ask them for nothing in return. Day 2, I follow up on that value, and again, with no CTA. So the second email I'll send will go something like this. Hey, name, hope you're enjoying XYZ lead magnet. This is my personal email. I wanted to reach out and see if there are any additional questions that you have about XYZ, and I'll respond with an answer. So by now, I've been filling up the value tank. I've fulfilled on my promise. I delivered on free value. And then I even followed up with them to ask if there was anything else they wanted help with and help them, all without asking for a thing. Now, the third day, what I'll do is I'll begin to train them for the link click, right? Because after I've given them so much value in the first 2 emails, they're probably going to be trained to at least open the third email. So what I will do is in the third email is I'll have some fun. What I personally do is I tell the story about the drunk cowboys and girls at the country festival and then provide value. Afterwards, instead of including a CTA, I say, if you want to see what these girls look like, click here, which takes people to a Word doc that says, shut the fuck up and get back to work. People get a laugh, and by now I've filled up the value tank and I have them ready to open and click on any future emails. Then day 4, I'll provide value, and then I'll do a proper CTA. So the 4th email is the first time I'll make an ask to my audience. I'll go through the steps outlined in this training, and then during the CTA, I'll link one of my funnels. And then for days 5 to 12, I'll simply repeat the sequence of days 1 to 4. Then the next thing that I'll do is I will sell the next email in every email that I'll do, and I do this by leveraging the PS line. So I do this by introducing the next problem that they will face and letting them know that I will show them how to solve it in tomorrow's email. So for example, I could say, PS, while following these steps to sign 10 plus new clients a month is great, we won't feel accomplished until that's secured month over month. So stay tuned for tomorrow's email where I'll show you how to ethically lock them in and secure your financial well-being. So that is the process that I have used to write email newsletters that take me on average 20 minutes a day, which have been a huge catalyst to the growth that I've had inside of my company. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you got 10x of value in return. And if you have any questions about this, just leave a comment below and I'll personally respond and get back to you to help you out with your email newsletters. Other than that, I wish you the very best with your business, and I'll see you in the next video.